Well, our last ministerial conference in Geneva, MC12, was very successful, and we are planning to double down on this success here in Abu Dhabi. There's many important items on the agenda where we are hoping to make significant progress. Agenda items include, for example, the reform of our dispute settlement system, constraints on subsidies that lead to harmful overfishing, and also e-commerce, for example. So there's many important things to discuss. Well, in our October forecast from last year, we predicted the volume of world merchandise trade to grow by 0.8% in 2023 and then by 3.3% in 2024. Now, it looks like that these forecasts were overly optimistic, particularly for 2023, driven mostly by unexpectedly weak economic performance of Europe. And Europe has a large share in world trade. So if the Europe's economy is slowing, then also world trade is slowing. But we do expect 2024 to be significantly better than 2023. And I should also say that even in 2023, services trade was very strong. So that's another bright spot in international trade. Of course, we're also concerned about the situation in the Red Sea and in the Suez Canal. For now, the aggregate implications seem to be still relatively moderate, but that's something that we are, of course, keeping a close eye on. Well, green trade is also very important. I mean, we always say the future of trade is in services, it's digital, and it is green. And we also insist that it is inclusive. We've seen an explosion in digital trade, but we've also seen significant growth in green trade. And we do believe that this is absolutely essential also to accelerating the green transition. Well, first of all, we're very grateful that we can be here in Abu Dhabi, and thank the UAE authorities for this excellent preparation of the MC. And in some sense, the UAE is a natural host of the ministerial, because the UAE has really put trade at the forefront of its development strategy with relatively low tariffs, a strategy that tries to diversify exports away from oil, and also a strong involvement in the multilateral trading system, not just here at the MC13, but also, for example, joining our so-called joint statement initiatives and many other issues. Well, there's so many issues, but maybe I can highlight a few, because I was saying before that the future of trade is in services, it's digital, and it's green, and we insist that it has to be inclusive. And if you take this forward-looking perspective, there's something to be discussed here at MC13 on all these issues. So if you take services, we have this joint statement initiative on services domestic regulation. When you think about digital, we have discussions about the e-commerce moratorium. And when you think green, we of course have the fisheries subsidies negotiations, but there's many other issues: agriculture, development, and of course the dispute settlement system, which is fundamental for everything we do. Well, so we don't have the numbers yet for this year. Our forecast is going to come out in April, but what I can say is that since 2005, digitally delivered services, the growth of exports in digitally delivered services has been 8.1% on average per year, far outpacing growth in other services and also growth in goods, which is why we believe that the future of trade is digital, and it's really important to get our economies ready for that. So I mean, we don't typically comment on the strategies of individual members, but what I can say is that, of course, this diversification effort away from fossil fuels is something that also broadly aligns with our vision of reglobalization, more diversified trade, where we also make ourselves more resilient and less dependent on individual countries or individual products. Well, I can tell you something about green trade more general, which I think is useful. So one thing I always say is that we all know that there's economic gains from trade, and the economic gains from trade come from countries specializing in what they're relatively good at. But we also insist that there's environmental gains from trade, and they come from specializing in the sectors in which you're relatively green at. So I think what the UAE could do, for example, is evaluate what sectors is it relatively green at, and then work on prioritizing those. For example, I know that the UAE is doing very well in digital trade. That could be one of those sectors.